days, India's Operation Sindoor has inflicted heavy damage on Pakistan civilians. Launched on May 7th, the operation began with strikes on 9 terror camps in Pakistan and POK. Pakistan retaliated by targeting civilians while sides pushing Pakistan's DGMO to seek de-escalation. Now, India's DGMO confirmed that over 100 terrorists, including IC-814 hijackers and Pulwama attackers, were eliminated, along with 35 to 40 Pakistani soldiers. He also confirmed several Pakistani jets Karachi if needed. Now, top government sources emphasize that Operation Sindoor is ongoing and reflects a new normal in India's counter-terror strategy. They clarified that future talks with Pakistan will only be through DGMOs with the sole agenda of being the return of POK and handing
The Pakistan Army has reported to have lost approximately 35 to 40 personnel in artillery and small arms firing on the line of control between the 7th and the 10th of May. 100 terrorists killed, including high-value targets such as Yusuf Azhar, Abdul Malik Rauf and Mudassir Ahmed that were involved in the hijack.
Their planes were prevented from coming inside our border. All right. So we do not have the wreckage with us, but definitely we have downed a few planes. Okay. I have the numbers. Okay. And we are getting into the technical details of it to establish it. So I would not like to put a figure at this time, but definitely
the Indian Navy's carrier battle group were immediately deployed at sea with full combat readiness. The forward deployment strikes select targets at sea and on land, including Karachi, at time of proportionate, non-escalatory and responsible from day one. First of all, to deliver a massive blow to our adversary. Pakistan dare take any action, and Pakistan knows it, what we are going to do.
Who is joining me live from Jammu at this point. Akash, first let's talk about how was last night.
Oh, of course, it was all different. Last night we did not, hear in the last few days, specifically drones or some sort of striking light that is basically, detected by, there was no major violation. In fact, we have been reporting from last so many days that how Pakistani, forces were firing artillery and Indian armed forces were front as well in Gujarat and in Punjab as well. We did not, hear about any sort of violation. So this communication rather, at 12 p.m. today, where a communication would be established using the hotline that is on the basis of the communication that DGMOs will be having, at around 12 p.m. Now, Sharon, I also want to, throw some light on the facts that were in fact we have, in fact, lost our 5, personnel in the cross-border firing in the last 4 or 5 days, where, Pakistani categorically mentioned by, the officers yesterday that how it was retaliated, and their side the casualty is 30 to 35. Now, other than that, we have down their military back home. It means we haven't got any sort of casualties as far as Indian Air Force is concerned. Other than that, as far as that has got INS Vikrant, our aircraft carrier, was deployed in the northern Arabian Sea, to carry out any sort of strike if needed, at the Karachi in the initial operation. That how Indian Army and Indian Air Force, were leading the sort of, attack, in fact, that was carried out on 7th of May when, Indian Air Force was, of course, taking care of the distant targets where, they engaged those targets and carried out the precision hit. In fact, Indian Army, where they had sent the drones and other weapons on these remaining sites yet, because we know that it is a pause after the sort of understanding that both the countries have reached today. That will further decide the next course of action as far as LC is concerned. So we know that how civilians were impacted because of the kind of fire that was coming from the other side. Pakistan, in fact, several drones were sent to, the area where I'm standing as of now. It is all peaceful till now. Srinagar Airport, Pathankot and Bhatinda and some other, military facilities throughout of the country with a ballistic missile. However, the attempt was thwarted, and we know that how the missile was intercepted and destroyed. How Indian armed forces have got the capabilities and they can strike deep inside Pakistan. Are fulfilled by Indian armed forces, and now it is very clear that no issue related to Jammu Kashmir that is going to be discussed in the future. And now when DGMOs are all set to meet, it
Absolutely. That is, in fact, what this decision that has, in fact, been taken as far as the DGMO level talks are concerned. That as well as Siddhant on this broadcast. Let me go across to Arunima now. Arunima, when we talk about was very measured, was very responsible, unlike what we have witnessed as far as Pakistan side is concerned. They kept their airspace open, they kept on
the precision with which Indian Air Force attacked air bases in Pakistan. Their runways was made inoperational, and been issued that the Rawalpindi Air Base may not be available for the next 1 week because the runway has developed craters. Before how the target was achieved. For Bahawalpur, for example, what the press conference pointed out, that in Bahawalpur the complex was quite pick up the precise target, and yet it was done. And the before and after pictures tells you around that red canopy, if you see the pictures that which was highlighted, and the buildings around it, the before and after picture clearly tells you that it was precise targeting of the quarters where these terrorists were living. And yes, DG ISPR and Pakistan press conference yesterday about the fundraiser for Lashkar-e-Toiba, Rauf, and said that he's an innocent man. Conference, but India is exposing these lies, calling out that if you see the United Nations sanction and the international sanction for the terrorists, the national ICARD number that are there in his sanctioning as a terrorist. So India is providing evidence at every step, providing evidence of how precision attacks were carried out, providing evidence continues continues with this fog of war, making baseless claims, trying to defend itself from the charge of state sponsoring terrorism. But today at 12 noon, speak to us about the way ahead, because as far as India is concerned, Operation Sindoor is still on.
Yes, so Operation Sindoor still continues, and as far as continues as far as India is concerned. Now, let me go across to my colleague Siddhant Mishra on this. Siddhant, when we talk about the evidences that Arunima also mentioned, that against Pakistan, how they are becoming a breeding ground, for terrorists. Will this in fact be presented in an international platform, like for example in United Nations?
In fact, already there have been 2 times when Indian government has given evidence to UNSC to Pakistan and Pakistan's military establishment. Twice this has been done by the Indian side. Perhaps after Pahalgam, tried protecting TRF so that TRF's name should not come up in the statement which was released by UNSC on 25th of April. Perhaps has exposed Pakistan in front of the world. Now that has in fact TRF's involvement with cross-border terrorism and being backed by Pakistan. Now we have Indian teams will go from New Delhi. Perhaps they are again going to present evidence of Jaish-e-Mohammed and in fact has direct links to Pakistan. So India is again for the 3rd time committee and perhaps the focus of India is going to be to get TRF sanctioned by United Nations. Already done, and for the 3rd time Indian government will be reaching out to UNSC in maybe next.
To talk about how Akash also mentioned and Arunima as well mentioned that how Operation Sindoor continues, and there were in fact a number of proofs that was concerned. The DGMOs told us that over 35 Pak army personnel had the press conference yesterday. Headline 2, 9 terror camps destroyed in strike. Remember the army terrorist camp. Now 100 plus terrorists killed in India strike. So this is the number that has in fact been officially given by the 814 hijackers and Pulwama plotters killed. This is very important to note here in this particular attack. The IC 814 100 plus terrorists who have in fact been killed by the forces. Now, headline number 4, 10 forces is that over 35 army personnel have in fact been killed. Headline number 6, we have in fact down forces is the another proof that has been given. Forces were ready to target Karachi. This is something that was in fact maintained by Now, India avoided collateral damage. India made sure that the civilians are not attacked and no civilian should in fact be hurt or harmed is what the purpose of Indian army was. Now, there is the understanding, a truce that both sides have reached. But if Pakistan strikes, India will strike back. Pakistan pleaded with us for that it was Pakistan who initiated the ceasefire as far as India-Pakistan escalation conference, and they have in fact been maintaining that the Operation Sindoor continues. Let me now go back to my colleagues Akash, Arunima and Siddhant who are continuing. There is also a DGMO level talk that is going to take place today at 12 noon. But in case there is ceasefire violation be put forth, isn't it?
Yes, they are going to see a strong retaliation, in fact, Sharon. the Pakistani army was in fact violating the ceasefire, Indian army was retaliating strongly, and that's the reason why we emerged out of the sort of conditions that we had in the last few days. We know that how in the areas like Shakargarh, Pakistani army was in fact mobilized various locations to the forward locations, specifically in the civilian areas, and specifically you must be remembering the night when in Punch we had some sort of care of that. While we can of course go for their military, we have not to, we should not in fact hit the ammunition storage and everything else, but then we did not target the civilians, and that's why it was categorically mentioned in the civilian population. However, day before yesterday, when they carried out several sort of launches against the Air Force retaliated once again, and it was then when facilities like Noor Khan Air Base stations and Noor Khan is in Rawalpindi, very close to the army headquarters, were targeted. So it was made very clear from the beginning, the war or war-like scenario, then we are ready for it, and we'll be giving a befitting reply.
Absolutely, we are. The forces are in fact telling us. I request you, Akash, Arunima and Siddhant, to please stay with us as we continue to talk about military leadership has revealed that its swift and calibrated military operation condemned the to Pakistan for 40 Pakistani soldiers. So this is what they have in fact told us as far as what we have. So this is something very important that has been mentioned in the press conference. Another part is that how retaliatory attack that was done by the forces, and it was very measured in nature is what they have told us. Another point that they have raised is that how Pakistani military attacks towards India, but they were in fact intercepted at the right time. The fourth point that has in fact been mentioned is that air bases have taken a hit is what India has in fact been saying. Jacobabad, Sargodha airfields have been struck. Khan airfield has been destroyed. Like I mentioned before, there were number of air bases as well as military have been down. This is something we mentioned earlier as well. A number of Pakistani jets have in fact been conference of the Tri-Services Chief that took place yesterday. Let me now go back to my colleague Arunima on this. Usually, is there a precedence that there are preconditions and post-conditions that are usually put in by both the sides?
On the afternoon, day before yesterday afternoon, when India was still bombarding Pakistan, was going ahead with his plans, and then what sources tell us is that it seems Pakistan side to the Indian Director General of Military Operations. It was then that the DGMO of on the 10th, there will be cessation of hostilities. But even palliating, there were Pakistani drones seen over Jammu and Kashmir along the line of control. There were some incidents of sporadic firing. In a long time was peaceful along the international border, along the line of control. Also in Punjab, in Rajasthan, modalities going forward. Operation Sindoor, like we are underlining, is still on. Near Karachi, and they have put out a post on social media saying that our battle preparedness has been there. So overall, if you see, even though last night has been peaceful, India is not letting its guard down. CDS and other officials, he said, वहाँ से गोली चलेगी तो यहाँ से गोला दागा जाएगा. Aggravating the situation. But if Pakistan wants to continue with its misadventure, we will not. Is Pakistan willing to honor the current agreement? All of that will be assessed.
set to take place at 12 noon today. I request you, Akash and Arunima, to please stay with us. Let me now go across to my colleague Siddhant. But diplomatically, what is going to be the next strategy of India?
Pahalgam attack has always been to throttle Pakistan financially. After Pahalgam, international organizations, institutions, and in fact, one-to-one briefing representatives, and in fact, the Indian envoys. At the same time, one-to-one tapping is being done by the Indian side, perhaps this time around, because Pakistan, and there are ample amount of evidence available with the Pakistani army, or perhaps maybe how there was a state have also helped India to build its case. So citing all this, India would present its case. Idea is to put pressure on Pakistan diplomatically, and as objectives which were set by the government of India. One was the political objective, other was the military objective, and the देंगे तो मिट्टी में मिला दिया बहावलपुर को मुरीद के को. Coming to military objectives, then to psychological objectives, then India had penetrated deep into Pakistan and struck Pakistani army, Pakistani establishment. So these objectives were set on a very first day after executed by the Indian side.
All right, many thanks Siddhant, Arunima and Akash for joining with us and sharing all those inputs.
Internet with over 6 times more unique users on social media, networking.
How in the past 26 innocent civilians. Launched on May 7, the operation began with strike on 9 terror camps in Pakistan. Fire pause. India responded decisively, striking multiple air bases and military sites, pushing Pakistan's, including IC-814 hijackers and Pulwama attackers were eliminated, along with 35 to 40 Pakistani soldiers. And India forces were positioned to strike Karachi if needed. Top government sources emphasize that Operation Sindoor is ongoing and reflects a new plan will only be through DGMOs, with the sole agenda being the return of the POK and handing over of the terrorist.
To have lost approximately 35 to 40 personnel in artillery and those 9 terror hubs left more than 100 terrorists killed, including Sir Ahmed, that were involved in the hijack of IC-814.
From coming inside our border, all right. So we do not have the wreckage with us, but okay, I have the numbers, okay, and we are getting into the technical details of it to establish it. So, losses from their side which we have inflicted.
At sea, with full combat readiness, the forward deployment of the Indian Navy compelled
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with CNN News 18. Now let's talk about how India and Pakistan are set to hold Director General of Military of Kashmir and Punjab, and this special communication follows an earlier ceasefire maintenance understanding, and the talks comes after 4 days of intense cross-border hostilities, raising fear of a wider conflict. Now on Saturday afternoon, the DGMOs reached an understanding to halt all the military actions, and the to prevent further escalation.
Was conducted at 15:35 hours yesterday, and cessation of cross-border firing and air intrusions by either side with effect these hostilities. First of all, as I mentioned, we have blow to our adversary, and we completely dominate in the maritime ladder mechanism, which we have worked out amongst 3 services. Take any action, and Pakistan knows it, what we are going to do.
All right, I'm back. United States between India and Pakistan's escalation. What do you think? What are you picking up? What could be the
point? Siddhant also spoke about this. What we are being told is that once US regional mission, one was to ensure that the terrorist launch pads and the terrorist was launched. So the first thing was to take down these terrorist launch pads, and Bahawalpur, which is terrorist centers, terrorist headquarters. So that was achieved. Second was when Pakistan damaged a number of their radar headquarters on their eastern border against the terrorist hub. All these 3 were achieved. We are told by government sources that United States, after initially now experts are interpreting it as the nuclear threat once again from Pakistan. Once cessation of hostilities, they would have to initiate. That's when Pakistani region stops the hostilities, and at 5 o'clock then on the 10th we saw a peaceful night. Post that, today the DGMOs are meeting again. The operation Pakistan would now have learned its lessons.
Well, we can only hope for that. We have this DGMO level talk. Has this happened before? What is really the protocol or the process that is followed?
See, DGMO is the first point of reaching out. I mean, when there is hostility, and they reach out to their each other, they reach out to their counterpart if they want to get a break facilities. Before that also one more round of talks had happened, but India was not prepared. Pakistan agrees to do so. Today will be the 3rd round since the time this conflict began. Ceasing hostilities are concerned, the fact they continue to send drones and they continue to shell very closely, the fact that DGISPR is still defending and saying that those people killed in the terror machinery in their country, and all of that will be factored in when they take that first step in the interest of regional peace. But we are still waiting and watching how this.
Now we are getting a breaking input at this point. Markets soar after ceasefire understanding between 540 points. The kind of decline that was seen as far as the Sensex and Nifty, the market is concerned because of the escalation. and the opening trade shows that the Sensex has gained about 1800 points and Nifty has gained. In fact, speculation that this could continue if there is not a ceasefire understanding reached between India and Pakistan. Sensex is up by 1800 and as far as Nifty is concerned, it is up by 440 points. And remember that we're going on between United States as well as India. But after that, there was in fact once again made the market go down, and there was in fact a prominent decline in the market as far as the understanding that has in fact been reached between India and Pakistan, after which India and the opening by CNBC TV18's Mangalam on this broadcast. Yes, Mangalam, over to you.
He was close to around the 24,500 mark. After the skirmish began, there was nervousness. We still were there. So it was a 500-point decline that we saw. Over the weekend, we saw de-escalation. We saw the ceasefire up. The Nifty is up 600 points, nearly 24,600. The incremental extra 100 in Russia and Ukraine as well. And at the same time, you are looking at a possibility of tariffs by Donald Trump and the global uncertainty when it came to trade. And as a result of which, now the fact that the dollar, add to all of this, India has already signed a trade deal with the UK, which we did not react to because of the thing US and India as well when it comes to trade. So economically, things look fairly resilient. On Friday, we saw been on a buying trend for our market, and our overall forex reserves also fairly strong at nearly and which is why the Indian markets are rallying as well.
But also, Mangalam, amid the India-Pakistan tensions, will actually see a positive incline in the market as well?
Do continue their talk. Remember, the US has signed a trade deal with UK as well. So if UK and US have signed a trade deal, there are positives for some of the Indian automakers. Which actually saw a big decline over the last two trading sessions were the travel and tourism stocks, and we saw a big decline. We are seeing a big bounce back in travel and tourism stocks. We have Indigo, which is doing well, Indian Hotels, the mid caps, which are doing a lot better, and we are seeing some profit booking. From all of this, the US impact on India when it comes to trade, the one thing we are watching out for is pharmaceuticals, because Trump again in the US, and they are looking at imposing some tariffs on pharmaceutical stocks as well. So pharmaceutical stocks are not doing too well. A lot better in India, given the strong fundamentals of India and the fact that we have some of the border related tensions behind us now. That's the belief.
All right, mate. 100 points and Nifty by 450 points. Moving on to Maharashtra, where Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis will hold an important AM today. Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, Ajit Pawar and many other ministers and there is of course a number of states that are in fact preparing as far as the India-Pakistan an important meeting on the subject of civil-military coordination at his official residence at Varsha Bungalow. Eknath Shinde as well as Ajit Pawar and many other ministers seen happening in Karnataka, in Delhi as well, where the civil defense officers were also in fact been asked to of their own ministries and how they are in fact prepared as far as the situation is concerned. And now is going to be present in this particular meeting which has been called by the Maharashtra. Details of this particular meeting, what is really on agenda here?
Absolutely, this is the second meeting which is happening. Also, they will be called, and along with that, the officials from the armed forces, especially if you remember, local unit also will be called for this particular meeting, and it is kind of a coordination to take up and to basically follow. So in this meeting, this is a kind of a follow-up meeting in which
Also, you have in fact informed us about how there were a number of leaves of the medical.
Absolutely. Devendra Fadnavis in last meeting had informed the civil military as well as, and considering that situation, he had instructed, so he will take the review also, that if first meeting, which happened just few days back.
All right. Thank you, Myresh, for getting us all those details. Now, US's announced Indira Gandhi's decisive leadership during the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. Congress is all set to hold. News 18's Pallavi Ghosh on this broadcast. Pallavi, what is this protest all about?